I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jessica, and we're from the Howe Collective Community Garden.
We're going to talk to you today about native plants and pollinators. We've been working on designing this space for well over a year now, doing lots of research on native plants, and we're going to give you a tour of the garden. So the last week in June is National Pollinator Week, and we're making this video in honor of that. Pollinators are a keystone species group, meaning they play a critical role in the functioning of our ecosystem. They are also an indicator species group. Their status indicates the health of the greater ecosystem. The vast majority of pollinators are insects. 4 major groups of pollinating insects are bees and wasps, flies, butterflies and moths, and beetles. Why should we care about pollinators? 1 out of every 3 mouthfuls of food is made possible by a pollinator. Most of our vitamins and minerals come from pollinated fruits and vegetables. Beyond food for humans, most of the flowering plants in the world depend on pollinators to reproduce. Insects, birds, and many other animals depend on these plants for food and shelter. Our focus in the Howe Collective Garden has been on native pollinators. Most of our native bees are solitary bees and don't live in colonies. An exception to this are bumblebees. They nest in the ground, holes in trees, dead wood, stems, and twigs. They are not aggressive like the honeybee, and most would not sting unless protecting their nest or trapped. Native bees pollinate apples, cherries, squash, blueberries, cranberries, and tomatoes more effectively than honeybees. Bumblebees are often the first bees active in the spring and the last in fall. Bumblebees buzz pollinate. The vibration of their bodies increases the release of pollen from some flowers, like tomatoes, peppers, and blueberries. Native pollinators are struggling, threatened by loss of habitat due to urbanization and intensification of agriculture, pesticide use, and introduction of invasive species that outcompete native host plants. How can you help? Provide habitat for a variety of species by planting a diversity of plants, preferably native. Native plants are adapted to our local soils and climate. Our wildlife and local pollinators are adapted to our native plants. Select plants with overlapping bloom times throughout spring, summer, and fall to provide maximum food sources throughout the year. Provide nesting, shelter, and overwintering sites and materials by leaving twigs, leaves, and grass on the ground. Please do not use pesticides. Insects play a crucial role in our ecosystem. Our garden currently features about 45 species of flowering perennials, 30 of which are native plant species. Our primary goal is to provide habitat for a variety of local wildlife species. By carefully choosing plants, we can support multiple functions. One plant can be a butterfly larval host, a nectar source for bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, a berry source for birds, a thicket for shelter, a windbreak for a butterfly garden, and a soil stabilizer and humus builder for the garden. Gardens create beautiful, alive green spaces that benefit both people and wildlife. And now we will take you on a tour of some specific native plants and tell you why they were chosen for our garden.
Our first plant is mock orange, a dense shrub with beautiful white flowers that smell similar to oranges. Birds eat the seeds, such as juncos, thrushes, chickadees, flickers, and a variety of finches. Mock orange is one of the favorite nectar plants for the western tiger swallowtail. Our next plant is kinnikinnick, a woody ground cover whose flowers attract bees and butterflies, and is a larval host plant for the brown elephant butterfly. And the birds like to eat the red berries. Ocean spray's dense branches provide songbirds with shelter and cover, and is a larval host plant for spring azure, brown elephant, and Lorcan's admiral butterflies, and the flowers provide nectar for bees and butterflies.
This area has been designed as a butterfly garden, and there are also some plants in there for hummingbirds. The general idea for a butterfly garden is you want to create a wind-sheltered space, so the shrubs along the border will grow up tall and create a windbreak, you want to provide them, the butterflies, a sunny spot. They also like flat stones to bask in the sun. So these flat stones placed around the garden in certain places in the sun, they will utilize those to sun themselves. As these plants grow in, it will be a pretty dense cover eventually. And we'll start here in the front. We have some red columbine. And hummingbirds like the nectar. The seeds are eaten by sparrows, juncos, and finches. Sea thrift, which is this one down here. You can't see the flowers yet, but the flowers attract bees, and it's a host plant for the painted lady butterfly. Nodding onion is this one right here, kind of flopping over. The flowers attract bees and butterflies and hummingbirds as well. Behind it we have yarrow. We have several small yarrows and then this one tall one growing. And the yarrow provides nectar for bees and many butterflies. The larger butterflies like to land on the flat composite flowers. They provide them a landing space and then they can feed off of all of the little flowers in them. And it is also a larval host for the painted lady butterfly. Behind it we have pearly everlasting, which is a larval host for painted lady. It's a nectar source for many other butterflies and bees and beneficial insects like lady beetles and syrphid flies, which feed on aphids. We have some larkspur up in the front here, which is another nectar source for various pollinators.